Welcome back to another edition of Down to the Wire, the weekly show where we recap everything that's been happening in the NHL in the past week. Again, alongside my NHL analyst, Nolan Thode. Nolan, how are you doing today?
I'm not doing bad. Got a little sleep in because two quads in a row. They gave me the spare, so I'm enjoying that. A little bit of a sleep in. Got outside today, so enjoying the weather as much as I can.
That's kind of funny how you didn't get two spares in a row. I'm sure the school tried to do as much to prevent that as possible to at least keep you busy, but I think that would be quite funny if you ended up with two spares in a row.
Yeah, exactly. Just being done now. I know a couple people who have it, so they're lucky. Grade 12 is already over for them.
Well, getting right into the news, Alexander Holtz signed his entry-level contract with the New Jersey Devils. Another young piece to the core that they have there in New Jersey. And like I've been talking about, like I think New Jersey's a wagon right now, or for the future, I should say. They have Alexander Holtz is going to be joining Hischier and Hughes. So the three H's essentially. He was drafted 7th overall in 2020. I love him. I think he plays a great two-way game. I think he'll be great for New Jersey and how they want to build around him. He has 18 points in 40 games for Drew Gardens IF of the SHL. So that's, the top Sweden league over there in Sweden. And then he had 3 points in 5 games at the World Juniors. Hopefully he can build upon his performance in the SHL and continue that into the AHL.
Yeah, exactly. Holtz was, top 3, I think, at the start of last season, in terms of, on the draft board. He slipped a little bit, but New Jersey's able to get him at 7. I think he's a solid prospect. And, I just got to agree with you in terms of, the influx of young talent that New Jersey has. And it's going to be exciting to see, how their team shapes up the next couple of years.
Dallas announced they are increasing their fan capacity to 30%. That's 10% more than what they currently have, which is 20%. Hopefully more teams do this since they are trying to recover, budget losses from the pandemic-ridden season a year ago. But yeah, it's great to see that more fans are making their way into buildings.
Yeah, you're not surprised, Dallas, Texas, they had that full baseball game, but no, it's going to be good for Dallas. They're in a stretch where, they might be able to get that 4th spot in their division. So, having the fans back, to go along the ride is going to help them for sure.
We have some hometown news here in Burlington, Ontario. Josh Anderson on Monday was playing first line minutes against the Edmonton Oilers. Just the tad tidbit right there. Super proud of, the hometown kid. Obviously, when Shane Wright, when the U18 tournament gets going tomorrow, Canada plays tomorrow. We'll have more news on how Shane Wright is doing because we like to cover how Burlington athletes are doing.
No, absolutely. Josh Anderson last year struggled with injuries, but, it's just been a great, bounce back for him on the Canadiens. And, I'm sure you as a Habs fan, but also, as a, resident of Burlington are happy to see it. It's one of those trades, people were mad at Bergevin at the time of, that trade and, he signed the long-term contract right after, but, a year later almost, and Josh Anderson's looking like a really solid piece for the Habs top 6,
And Max Domi has been healthy scratched twice so far. Yeah. So it looks like John Tortorella is trying to get himself fired because if I look down that Columbus lineup, it seems as though Domi should be a fit, on the top 6.
Yeah, exactly. Domi's just been an interesting guy, never really found anything in Arizona. And then his first season in Montreal, he actually had a lot of success. Second year wasn't as great, ended up being in the 4th line center in the playoffs. And then, just hasn't been able to do anything in Columbus either.
Zach Hyman is out a minimum of 2 weeks with a sprained MCL. This comes after Alex Edler kneed him last week, actually. And Edler was suspended for 2 games. And, as Hockey Night in Canada or, the Sportsnet crew was going through the injury and kind of evaluating it, I thought that 2 games was justified because I think that's really the standard for kneeing penalties and suspensions. So, this is probably the best news possible, but at the same time, it can be the worst news. Like you don't want to wish for Hyman to miss more than 2 weeks, but 2 weeks from now, right, is basically the playoffs. It's nearing the end of the regular season for the Leafs. They can clinch at any point right now. So yeah, and also Ray Ferraro pointed this out, but the leg he injured in the hit with Edler was the same leg he had major surgery on. So, that's kind of important news to share, because hopefully he doesn't have a setback where he needs to go get another major surgery on the same leg.
Yeah, exactly. Zach Hyman, I've talked about him. He's just one of those guys that's going to give you 110% every kind of shift. And, as a result, he's had a couple injuries in his career, specifically on his knees. And yeah, like you said, the same leg. So, hopefully it's not, too much of a lingering thing, only 2 weeks, sprain MCL. Luckily he didn't tear anything. But a big blow for the Leafs, as of now, just good top six piece. But, Nick Foligno now in the lineup's kind of, filling his role in the time being.
And, Zach Hyman's one of those players where you can plug and play. You could place him in a spot and he'll do the exact same thing. Whereas if you were to place him on the first line, he's just one of those players that's really fun to follow along with during a game.
Exactly. I feel like, most play styles in the NHL, like you got a playmaker, you got a sniper, two-way forward. I feel like we need to figure out, another one. You got the guys like Hyman, Gallagher, they play a little bit of everything. So we should be able to coin some specific name for these types of players going in the future.
Rogers Media there was actually a huge outage for Rogers Media users on Monday. It was either across the province of Ontario or Canada wide. I'm not sure, but William Nylander was late for a meeting on Monday, and he came to the press conference on Tuesday and said he literally had no idea that there was a meeting. So you could argue, you could speculate that, Nylander could be a possible user, a possible customer of Rogers. And, that in a digital age where, we rely so much on technology, especially in a pandemic, that could be a legit reason why Nylander was late. And maybe he told the coach, which is why, Keefe allowed him to play on Tuesday.
Yeah, I feel like Keith's the kind of guy who would discipline his players, if they miss a team meeting, but it seemed to be justified because, like you said, Rogers was going through issues then. And yeah, like you said, no accountability for him. He didn't get benched or anything and was able to play the next night, actually.
Patrick Marleau passed Gordie Howe for all-time games played against the Vegas Golden Knights. And if you think about it, every game Marleau appears in, he's just beating himself. He sets a new all-time record. And that kind of blows my mind, because you kind of have to stand back and realize that, the San Jose Sharks have a Hall of Fame player. I'm not sure, but it'd be weird to see someone who set an NHL record not be in the Hall of Fame. But yeah, you have someone who is currently playing, setting NHL records just by grinding it out, going through the mental grind, especially the season being away from your family. The mental grind of going through all the protocols, all the safety precautions that the NHL is putting in place for the players to be safe.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's a tough season to get all your games in, just with the protocols and everything. He's luckily been able to get out there on the ice for most of the games. And congratulations to him breaking Gordie Howe's record. Just an incredible feat. And Patrick Marleau has been someone who's been in the league for, even almost 10 years before we were even born. So, just longevity in terms of his career, and we'll see how far he ends up going.
Now, I'm not sure if you saw, but Patrick Marleau got Golden Gloves for commemorating as a celebration, and they were actually misspelt. So really? Hopefully he got those gloves replaced, and hopefully that person who misspelt them didn't get fired. But hopefully it's a learned lesson essentially.
No, 100%. Just an awkward situation. You'd figure that everyone within that Sharks organization knows how to spell Patrick Marleau's name.
McDavid kind of had a goal of the year candidate, in my opinion, against the Habs. He split the D, Jeff Petrie and Joel Edmondson. The way McDavid, all right, like the way he captures speed in the neutral zone, he only needs 2 strides and he's gone. Like that's how incredibly fast this guy is. And which amazes me. He takes 2 strides literally and is gone. Splits the D and scores on Jake Allen. Price was actually injured in that game and is currently concussed from Alex Chason. And it's weird because when Alex Chason interfered, I'm like, yeah, he got the head, but Price played the rest of the period. And when Alex Chason, concussed him, it was early on. Like that power play happened within like the first 5 minutes of the game.
Yeah, no, it was weird to see him finish the period, but they went into the locker room and obviously some discomfort. He, just probably told the coach that he wasn't feeling great, and they took him out, and he hasn't been back on, the ice since. So it'll be interesting to see when Price gets back, because the Habs need him. They're in that tight race.
This junior news comes because there were initial reports that the OHL season was getting canceled, but which we later know did get canceled. But the WHL season is ending their season after 24 games. There's no playoffs, which they had to kind of make a statement because the QMJHL's in their playoffs. So they just wanted to confirm the news that there wouldn't be any playoffs for the WHL, and it's just unfortunate that these kids have such a limited showing for scouts.
No, 100%. Just a rough year, to be in the junior leagues, and WHL, better than the OHL. They got 24 games, so their players were still able to do something. But yeah, with no Memorial Cup, no playoffs, it's just a tough season, all around.
And on Tuesday, the OHL season did get canceled, and David Branch held a press conference. I'll just go through again what was said. So they came close to, a couple weeks ago to get the government to get a season underway, but they didn't get government approval. Branch was planning on having a 4-team hub, have players bubble in hotels. The province used the Leafs and Senators return to play as the standard, but they couldn't afford all of it. So they tried to get government funding because they needed support for testing and, other measures like that. The OHL is working on expanded top prospects game for overagers and draft prospects. And Branch is considering expanding the age criteria so overagers could return. The last 2 points there, I love him. I love how they're trying to get as much OHL action as possible, despite not having a confirmed season. And, I think it's great the commissioner is in contact with the government, but it sucks that the players were dragged along for so long. And they were waiting and waiting and waiting, and they basically didn't get any word. Like there was no communication between the players and the commissioner. And, this is coming from a guy who, I interview a lot of OHL players. I'm in constant contact with them. So, it just sucks so much that they didn't really know if there would be a season.
Exactly. 100%. You just got to feel for them because they, for the last couple months have just been, taking everything day by day, figuring out, whether or not they can have a season even happen. They've been training hard, just being prepared just in case, any second now, the season gets approved. Unfortunate that, they weren't able to get that season, but like you said, I'm happy that, they're trying to, get some game action, especially that top prospects game. It's, just in the OHL specifically, but, the CHL usually has like a top prospects game every year. And, people who are, excited for the draft tune into that just to see their players play. But, if they can do anything this year, I think it'll be, a big win, just, tough with this Ontario government. And I'm glad that they didn't do a season with no fighting though.
Yeah, exactly. It was first reported that Lisa McLeod, like the Minister of Sport, said that, we're not going to do any body checking. And like everyone was hating on her, man. Yeah. And, I thought it was ridiculous that she would come out with that comment because literally we just watched the NHL go through a bubble where there was body checking. And, just even before the NHL set up the bubble, science proves that, body checking doesn't, get you COVID, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. It would have been definitely interesting to see, a socially distanced hockey game played. And, some guys, fully rely on their physicality. It's a big part of their game. You got power forwards, you got big, 6'5" defensemen, and without body checking, they would have had to adjust. So, unfortunate that there's no season, but yeah, it was just a tough year all around.
Moving on to better news, Spencer Knight made his NHL debut on Tuesday, and he won his debut, made 33 saves on 34 shots. Unfortunately, it's going to be hard to see him getting most of the net behind Bobrovsky and now Driedger. And that's an interesting point with Chris Driedger, because who knows, maybe they expose him to Seattle. Maybe they do a side deal with Seattle to keep Driedger, but then that would kind of hurt the development of, Spencer Knight, which kind of sucks because you want Spencer Knight to get as much action as possible. So maybe you stick him in the AHL for next season. It's a weird situation Florida is in.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like, for the last 10, 15 years, it's sort of been you draft a goalie and, they don't really see the NHL until they're like, early to mid 20s, 23 maybe being like an ideal age for an NHL debut. But, Carter Hart came in and seemed to be a starter, at age 20 for the Philadelphia Flyers. It was kind of a rare situation. And now, Spencer Knight, who people are saying is, the next Carter Hart sort of thing in terms of, top goalie prospect. He's able to come in here, stop 34 or stop 33 of 34 shots, just an incredible debut at such a young age. He's got such a bright future, but it is going to make things tough on the Florida GM because they got 3 really solid goalies there.
And on this day in 1969, Bobby Orr scored his first postseason goal. It proved to be the game winner as the Bruins defeated the Canadiens 3-2 in Game 4 of the semifinals. Boston would go on to lose the series in 6 games. And actually, Orr finished his career with 26 playoff goals, and he only scored that one playoff goal during that run in 1969. So, when you think of Bobby Orr, number 4, one of the greatest defensemen of all time, to only finish with 26, playoff goals, in total, that's kind of odd. But then you look at the amount of games played or had during his playoff career, and he was always over point per game. So, greatness is often not measured in statistics, but in how, you play.
Yeah. Bobby Orr just kind of like in a way changed the game just because defensemen, weren't being utilized as much as, they are nowadays in terms of the offense. Bobby Orr, you said, able to be a point per game guy in his career sort of thing, just incredible for a defenseman. And like you said, 26 playoff goals, it's a little low, but, he's got that one game-winning Stanley Cup overtime goal. I think, that makes them all worth it. Just an incredible, career, Bobby Orr.
Yeah, exactly. And, I would love to go to Boston to see a Bruins game and to see his, number in the rafters. And actually I should probably go back on my last point there saying statistics don't measure greatness, but they actually do. That's how we kind of measure greatness, I should say. But what I meant by that is when you first hear 26 playoff goals for, a Hall of Fame defenseman, that doesn't make you go, wow, you have to do more research, right? So, yeah. Just Bobby Orr, one of the greatest defensemen of all time. And to your point there, I think that, when Bobby Orr kind of introduced that's kind of the new wave, puck moving defenseman, offensive defenseman kind of started with Bobby Orr. No,
exactly. And even now you look at, players now, they'll say they looked up to Bobby Orr, even though he didn't even play in their lifetime, just, such an impactful player on the NHL.
The Penguins beat the Devils 7-6. When I say that score, you think, all right, well, it's crazy. Every other team scored. The Penguins held a 6-0 lead into the third period. If I showed you the Devils scoring 6 straight goals, just a screenshot of the Devils scoring 6 straight goals and the Penguins scoring 1 goal, you would think the Devils win 6-1. Well, I guess apparently 6-0 leads aren't safe either. Yeah. That's one of the weird storylines this season. No lead is safe. You have to play a full 60-minute hockey game. And actually, the Penguins become the first team in NHL history to win a game in which they were outscored by 5 goals in the third period. That's insane.
Yeah, no, just an interesting stat. I had Tristan Jarry in one of my fantasy leagues, and I was happy because, he hadn't let in any goals through 2 periods. And I thought, I was looking at a good save percentage and a win. He ended up picking up the win, but the save percentage definitely got hurt in that third period.
Nolan Foote scored his first NHL goal, and actually Jeff Carter scored his first with the pen. So, it's good to see that 2 players, one's a rookie, one is an old-time vet. Great to see that they're starting to fit in with, their teams respectively. Yeah,
Nolan Foote, again, we talked about New Jersey, earlier in terms of a wagon. If Nolan Foote can, be a small, 20 goal scorer on that third line for New Jersey moving forward in the future, just utilize that shot that he has, another dangerous piece for them. And obviously nice to see Carter get on the board with the Pens.
New Jersey has been officially eliminated from playoff contention with that loss. It's the third straight season they will be, in the draft lottery. So, they got Holtz, Heischer, and Hughes the last couple of drafts. Nolan Foote as well. Foote's got a cannon of a shot. So, it seems as though that New Jersey, right, they're building a core, they're building a foundation, and I really like where they're headed.
No, exactly. I think with New Jersey, they pretty much have everything you need looking into the future. I think they have a number one center, whether it be Heischer or Hughes, either one of them, that's a good 1-2 punch. You got potentially a number one defenseman for the future in Ty Smith. He's had an okay rookie season. You could even look to draft, a defenseman this year. And then they have their starter figured out, Mackenzie Blackwood, he's young as well. So New Jersey, if they play their cards right, they can have a very successful team for a very long time, just like they did, in the Brodeur era.
Vancouver beat Toronto 6-3 and make a save, Dave. Dave Riddick didn't have the best performance of his career. It seemed as though his positioning was off during the whole game. He was just off, something about him. But an interesting stat, actually, the Canucks earned their 69th all-time win over the Leafs on 420 with a guy named Highmore in the lineup. So that's a very nice stat to share. Just give some perspective on how important that was for the Canucks to win the game.
Yes, I'm sure they went back into the locker room and Travis Green, their coach pointed out all those points to them. But yeah, very nice stat indeed.
No, but all kidding aside, that's huge for Vancouver's playoff chances. They have, I think, like 5 or 7 games in hand between like Montreal and Calgary. And for Vancouver, in the way that they're playing, it's very surprising to me. I just think the playoffs are out of sight for them. They have to go on a very inhumane run, essentially. Like they have to play like they're aliens. Fatigue's going to certainly set in sooner rather than later. They just don't have the roster to go on the incredible run that they have to.
Exactly, and they've been coming out hot, surprisingly, the teams who have gone, in a complete shutdown for COVID-19, Buffalo and New Jersey had to do it earlier this year, and they kind of struggled when they came back. Whereas, Vancouver is looking like a better team, even without Pettersson and, a couple other guys. But it'll be interesting to see if they can make the playoffs because, they do have those games in hand, but what are they going to do with those games in hand? It's only hypothetical at this point in time, and we'll see how they do, in the coming weeks.
You can only win, we can only brag about games in hand unless, until they result in wins.
No, exactly. You can look at games in hand, but, nothing's guaranteed.
Moving on to Wednesday's notes, John Merrill made his Habs debut, replacing Brett Kulak on the point. My thought to this point is I wonder if the Habs will rotate Brett Kulak, Eric Gustafsson, and John Merrill, down the stretch to keep bodies fresh because of how, tough the schedule is for Montreal. And, more so to get a look at different players in different situations. That's what Winnipeg is doing with their defense. Paul Maurice said that, we're going to insert, Tucker Pullman, for example, or Logan Stanley to see how he matches up against Matthews or Nylander or, someone on Edmonton, right? And I think that's a great coaching style. You're getting great info, you're getting great evaluation ahead of the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. And when you look at these 3 defensemen, they can all kind of play different roles. Gustafsson is very offensive, Merrill's very defensive, and Kulak's a bit of both. He's a good puck mover. And yeah, like you mentioned, just keeping bodies fresh can be good as well. But, also just dependent on your matchup. If you're facing a team with a very high-powered offense, maybe you want to get Merrill in there, just add a little more defensive depth. But, if you're playing a team where you have confidence in your offense, maybe boost it a little more by putting a Gustafsson or Kulak in the lineup.
Robin Lehner criticized the NHL on Wednesday, saying that they weren't holding up their promises. They didn't give, the vaccinated teams and players what they had promised. So I'll just go through the press conference. So, he said that we were shown the NBA protocols, to get back to some type of normalcy. COVID is dangerous. It's been a crazy thing for everyone, but we were approached and promised the same things to change for our league if we got vaccinated. And to be promised something's going to change to take a vaccine where some players were on the verge of even taking it. I was one of them that wasn't sure, but I took it for my mental health. And when we did it, now they change. Now they said it's not happening. They told me yesterday, as in Tuesday, they're surveying all the teams to see who has taken the vaccine and who has not taken the vaccines. And they're not going to change the rules for us as players until all the teams have vaccines at the same time. So it's not a competitive edge. I know more than a lot of people know what's going on. And they're talking about competitive edge instead of human lives. Competitive edge, human lives. We're humans too. So there's a twofold problem for me here. The first one is we get promised something to take that not necessarily everyone wants. So that was a lie, blatant lie. Second, to put competitive edge over human lives. I've tried to figure out a way for me to perform as well as possible to be, which I've done. Doesn't mean I have been doing good personally. I'm not perfect. It's been hard, but I'm not just talking about myself here. It's for everyone. We are vaccinated and we are still trapped in a prison. However, Lehner did go on Twitter to say, to apologize for his prison comment. He was visibly frustrated with the current circumstances of the NHL during his press conference and what they told the players. He mentioned how it feels like a prison because you can't be with your teammates, hotel and back from the practice rink when you're on the road. You can't really go outside your home when you are playing at home. And you have to have meals delivered to you on a constant basis. So, Robin Lehner has been advocating for mental health all of his life. And I love it. I think it's great. Lehner spoke out about the NHL. And, I hope that the NHL does live up to their promises. This is just something that's so bad that, it sucks to see, the NHL and what they're doing.
Definitely not a good look for the league. He's coming out and very frustrated, and it all makes sense. It's not like he's frustrated for no reason. He's saying actual facts that are taking place and making the NHL not look very good. Like you said, Robin Lehner has just been an advocate for mental health, in his whole career, and I think that's such a positive thing to have in the league, in this day and age, just because players' mental health is super important. 25 years ago, it wasn't even talked about. And, a lot of players, especially, the enforcer types, once they retire from the NHL, they struggle a lot, in terms of mental health, and it's hard. So I feel like if you have a player that's currently in the league, talking about his difficulties, it's just really good. The fans can kind of just see, into the lives of these NHL players and not really viewing them as, these sort of players on their TV screens, but, actual humans.
The Women's World Championship got canceled for the second straight year. The IOC and Hockey Canada are looking at summer dates to host the tournament, simply because this tournament for women's is very important, not only for the game, not only for the for the game to expand it, to grow it. It's very important for that aspect. It's very important for the athletes to get them into game shape as well. But it's also very important for the road to the Olympics. This Women's World Championship is regarded as kind of, I guess, the setup, the tune-up to the Olympics. You get information about how so-and-so is playing. Hopefully that, we see the tournament get rescheduled. And actually, it got canceled at the very last minute. On Tuesday, it was announced that Nova Scotia was still okay, going ahead with the tournament. And, players were quarantining. You had to quarantine for like 8 days, I think, to be eligible to play. And next thing you know, 24 hours later, it got canceled. So, I think this is on Nova Scotia for not communicating with, the higher ups such as the IOC and Hockey Canada, as well with the players.
Yeah, I'm surprised that there was a tournament, being planned to be held within Canada. Obviously, the World Juniors were in Edmonton, but, it seems like if you're going to look for a bubble, it's going to be in the States just because, less strict in terms of, people coming in. Just super unfortunate. Like you mentioned, it's tune up for them, just to get a little bit of a read on, teams going into the Olympics. An Olympic medal means a little more than a world championship. So to be able to get that, little bit of background knowledge going in, it's important. But yeah, I feel bad for all these ladies, and just in terms of growing the game, it's just definitely hard I can imagine, how young girls would think, seeing all these, the NHL running smoothly, not smoothly, but, there's NHL games every night, and, the women's, struggling to, even get out there.
Patrick Marleau recorded 900 straight games. One of the Ironman streaks in the NHL, and he actually became the fourth player to skate in 900 straight games. So I'll go down the list actually of the top five for the Ironman streak. So Doug Jarvis is first. He's at 964. Recently, Keith Yandel eclipsed second place, passing Gary Unger. Keith Yandel has played in 915 straight games. Gary Unger played in 914 straight games, and Patrick Marleau played in 901 straight games. So top four right there. Phil Kessel is actually top five. He rounds up the top five at 892. So, just another milestone in Patrick Marleau's healthy career.
Yeah, exactly. You don't make it to the top of the NHL's all-time list without having a huge Ironman streak. Just a very durable guy. You don't really think of Patrick Marleau being, injury prone or anything, and it proves it there. Just 900 straight games. People I feel like don't realize how incredible that really is. Just, guys, will take a game off. Matthews, you see it. He'll have something lingering with his wrist and take a couple games off just to see if it feels better. But, Marleau's not that kind of guy. He's going to get out there on the ice, at all costs.
The GMs had a meeting on Wednesday, and they shared a helpful target date for puck drop, which is October 12th. And that's kind of a date that, us hockey fans are kind of used to having, the NHL season start in early October. So, as we continue on, as vaccines keep rolling out, it looks better and better as the days go on that, the NHL will start in October. And I'm super happy about that.
Yeah, exactly. A big worry for me in terms of the pandemic and, the cancellation of all the sports leagues was, how long was it going to take for the sports leagues to be able to, adjust their schedules to get back to normal. The NBA and NHL started, in different months this year. The NHL starting in January, typically starts, unless it's a lockout, like you said, in October. So it's really nice to see that this is the target date. Obviously, it's a hopeful target date at this point in time. We don't know for sure, but it's just good in terms of making it back to that normal life that we all miss.
The Golden Knights are a cheat code. They clinched a playoff spot for the fourth straight season. They joined the following three teams to make the playoffs in each of their first four seasons. The Edmonton Oilers from 1980 to 92. The New York Rangers from 1927 to 1935, the St. Louis Blues from 1968 to 1973. That's crazy for an expansion team. Not only did they set, the record during their expansion year for like furthest expansion team to make it in the regular season, in the season, the playoffs, but they also set this record. So, it's crazy just how good, George McPhee has done. Kelly McCrimmon, those guys have built a foundation, right? They've built a team that's going to be substantially a playoff contender for years to come.
No, 100%. I feel like the strategy for an expansion team coming in is just to try to get as many, as much draft capital as you can. Because I feel like, a lot of teams try to build through the draft. And, Vegas did that, when they first came into the league, they were getting first round picks for, protecting specific players in the expansion draft, doing well at that. And they were able to still get a solid team. And then when they had all those assets, they were able to go out and trade for pieces like a Max Pacioretty, like a Mark Stone. So like you said, just a really well-built team. And I feel like Vegas is just, four straight season. And, it's going to be hard to see, when that streak dies, maybe they can beat the Oilers and, hold the record.
Kirill Kaprizov set the Minnesota Wild franchise record for rookie goals with 19, and this is in a contract year. Like I didn't even realize that he was in a contract year. So he's going to get paid handsomely because he's literally making the Minnesota Wild relevant again. A single player making your franchise relevant again. You might want to give him the bag. You might want to pay him I'm thinking he's getting like six and a half mil. He's probably going to set the RFA market, which is going to be rich. And yeah, he's been this incredible player for the Wild, an incredible player to watch, just to flip on the Wild. For me, I probably didn't care about the Wild games, last year. Now, I find myself watching more Wild games than ever.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you and I talked about this in the middle of the week. Kaprizov just, not single-handedly, other players on Minnesota, deserve their credit as well. But, just to be sort of a face of a franchise that Minnesota really hasn't really had. They've had faces of their franchise before, but never like, a skilled, potential superstar like Kaprizov is. And interesting point you bring up with it being a contract year, whether or not, Minnesota maybe signs into like maybe a 2-year bridge deal to see, if he really is legit. But, from what we've seen, I think, he's legit, and, maybe locking him up long-term would be the smart move for the Wild.
Or, just based on the contract that we've been discussing, like maybe since, there's like the cap space is so low because of the pandemic, maybe they do bridge them just because like, the Wild, front office is looking all right. So the cap floor or the cap, is not probably going to go up all that much because teams aren't getting much in to their respective, banks essentially. And, with the cap not going up, that means that, you're basically going to have a flat cap, which has been discussed for the next 4 seasons. So I wonder if Kaprizov and the Wild can do some sort of agreement where it's like, all right, so you're going to have to take a paycheck or a pay cut essentially until we can give you, your big boy contract.
Yeah, 100%. And it's going to be interesting for Minnesota as well because they have a lot of money, locked up to specific guys. Parise and Ryan Suter obviously signed those big deals when they came over to Minnesota. And then a guy like Jared Spurgeon, he's also locked up for the next, 6 or 7 years. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of contract he ends up getting.
On Thursday, Thursday, 1976, Darryl Sittler scored 5 goals against the Flyers, tying an NHL record for most goals in one playoff game. And if there was one player on the Leafs that I can think that can tie the record, tie Darryl Sittler right there, it's Austin Matthews. The guy's got a rocket of a shot, and the way he disguises the shot, right? He changes his shot release, his shot point. Maybe he's doing a snapshot. Maybe he's curl and dragging the shot. The guy can really, I think he can really score 5 goals in one game.
No, 100%. We saw him score 4 in his first career game and, only 3 hat tricks in his career, kind of king of the 2-goal games. But, if I had to bet on anyone, I think Matthews would be my choice as well. I just think, he's incredibly gifted with the puck and he just makes it look so easy. When players come to the NHL, there's a little bit of a transition in terms of, the NHL goalies and difference between junior, but, he makes NHL goalies look like junior goalies. He's just that incredible.
Tyler Bertuzzi and Franz Nielsen are out for the rest of the season for the Red Wings. I think we'll see more news of teams outside of the playoff race announce that players aren't returning simply because the games are meaningless. And actually, it was announced Friday that Dylan Larkin was out for the season. So, in fantasy news, you made a nice trade there, getting rid of Larkin since you didn't have to deal with that mess.
Yeah, no, exactly. I didn't know. You're telling me for the first time. Somehow the news didn't get to me that Larkin was out for the rest of the season. But Detroit, what are they going to do for the rest of the year now? Only a couple pieces. Is Jacob Vrana going to be able to score 4 goals every night?
Who knows? Hopefully that who knows? Because it's the NHL. Weird things have happened every night.
Yeah, he's their entire offense. Him and Philip Zadina are going to carry the whole team.
I heard Joe Veleno's actually coming up, so that's another prospect that Red Wing fans should be happy about.
No, exactly. When the season's out of the way, it doesn't really matter if the games are wins or losses anymore. I feel like the focus should be shifted towards getting young guys in the lineup, prioritizing them over a veteran kind of guy, just looking towards the future.
Jack Quinn is having season-ending surgery on a lower body injury. He's been playing through this injury since the tryout camp started ahead of the World Juniors. And my thoughts on this were that Jack Quinn was going to get a shot for the Sabres this season, but that's obviously going to have to wait. Maybe they stick him down in the AHL for one complete season before calling him up. But obviously you don't want to ruin his development.
Yeah, Jack Quinn, he was kind of a shocking pick for a lot of fans just because, they had guys like Cole Perfetti still on the board, Marco Rossi as well. I feel like a lot of people expected Buffalo to take him, but they went, with Jack Quinn, who's more of like a traditional sniper kind of guy. And, as someone who comes from a Sabres household, I'm definitely hoping that, Jack Quinn, has a good surgery and, can come back and be that, top 6 forward that the Sabres drafted him to be.
The Avalanche returned on Thursday night from their small COVID outbreak, which postponed 3 of their games. And actually, the first game that they get back, they clinch the playoffs. Just a superb team that Joe Sakic has built. Definitely a cup contender. But, it's weird because we've been saying that Colorado's been a cup contender for around 3 years now, ever since Cale Makar got into the league. So hopefully that this year they can take that next step and, be in the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yeah, hopefully, they got Grubauer out now for COVID and Rantanen as well. I'm not sure if it's COVID or injury reasons, but, out. So hopefully they can get, the full lineup back healthy for the playoffs because, this team is, poised to go on a deep run for sure.
And, you got to be right because, like, Colorado, right, they were out with their 2 goalies, right, that got injured, and that's why they picked up Dubnyk. So hopefully that Grubauer does come back healthy and better than ever.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like good goaltending is what separates the Avalanche from a second, third round exit to winning the Stanley Cup.
Nick Foligno made his Leafs debut and actually assisted on the Marner empty net goal. So, it's good that he got his assist. I thought he looked really well. He played really well with the Matthews and Marner line.
He seems to be fitting in super well. They've tried a couple, weird guys on that top line. Joe Thornton to start the season. Was he going to be able to keep up with them speed-wise? Maybe not. Wayne Simmons as well. And, Hyman's been the best piece for them. But, as we talked before, he's hurt right now. So Nick Foligno, whether he stays in that spot when Hyman comes back or, gets moved down to another line, I feel like, he's just fitting in really well with the Leafs so far.
And, just on that Joe Thornton piece right there, point you made, I really feel for the guy because it seems as though this is his last season. Like, him and Eric Stahl, personally for the Habs, it seems as though they can't they can't get the speed under them anymore. It just sucks.
No, 100%. I feel like speed is, such a big part of the game now that, these veterans, when they get old and to the end of the career, they're just super ineffective. You look at a guy like Rick Nash. He went from being, an all-star player to, retired within a couple seasons. Obviously, he had injury issues, but he definitely wasn't the same player, just because the league was getting a lot faster and he was more of your, traditional power forward type.
Minnesota extended Ryan Hartman for a 3-year, $1.7 million contract. I think this maybe 3 years is the right contract length. Maybe that's what the Wild are looking at for Kaprizov. I don't know, but this is just one of the. I think it was an RFA that comes off the books for the Wild.
Yeah, I think it's a solid contract. Ryan Hartman, he's been up and down in his career. He's had a couple good seasons. He was solid with Chicago, ended up getting traded at the deadline for a first-round pick to Nashville. Never really did anything in Nashville, but he seems to, be a solid, middle 6 forward for the Wild and a good piece moving forward. They got him for 3 years at a relatively cheap price.
Jacob Vrana, obviously you mentioned the 4-goal game. That was his second career hat trick and actually first career 4-goal game. And, I didn't see it coming from him actually. And, thankfully, he did get traded to Detroit. So he's, getting the ice time to show off his skills.
I think Detroit was the perfect destination for him just because, when you're in Washington, you're always going to be behind a guy like OV, Backstrom, no matter how you're playing, just because, those guys are legends, Hall of Famers. It's going to be tough to, take away from their minutes. But Detroit has nothing but minutes to give to Jacob Vrana. And, he's doing the best with them, able to pop 4 goals in this game. Just, really exciting and making Steve Yzerman look, pretty smart.
The Blue Jackets did get eliminated from playoff contention on Thursday night, so they'll be in the draft lottery. They did a really good job of selling off their assets, I thought. And they obviously thought that, they wouldn't be making the playoffs. So, it's good to see that David Savard is with Tampa and, he'll make a good run. Just some news there.
Yeah, it's making me think, obviously they've been able to do stuff with not a lot of talent on their roster with, John Tortorella as the coach, but, they have a lot of talent in terms of, a guy like Patrick Laine, Seth Jones, Zach Werenski, maybe a head coaching change to move on to the future, because as of now, I feel like with this playing style, the Blue Jackets, their ceiling's only so high for how good they can do. I don't see them as, a cup contender, or anywhere close to it. So, maybe towards his time in Columbus could be looking at, could be the end.
Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, UPL, made his NHL debut on Saturday, and he actually won his first career game. Sam Reinhart with his fourth career hat trick. I watched him play when Sudbury was in Hamilton, and man, the guy's a stud of a goalie. That's obviously back in junior. What do I know about his NHL? I can only watch it from a TV screen. So hopefully he continues, this confidence that he has going for him.
Yeah, it was a really interesting game. I think he let in his second shot. So he saved the first, let in the second, and then was actually able to rattle off a bunch of saves in a row. The Sabres got a 5-1 lead over the Bruins somehow, Sabres being up 5-1 on the Bruins in that third period. And, they had a good enough cushion, even though he let in a couple goals in that third, he was still able to come away with the win.
Zach Pagozian is out 4 weeks with a shoulder injury. He kind of toe-picked himself. He lost an edge as he went into the boards against Vancouver. He might miss game one or two of the playoffs because, 4 weeks, I'm just thinking like, yeah, okay, so he's going to miss, the rest of this month, basically the rest of May. So maybe he might be back for game one because, the Canucks and Flames still have to play 4 times. And I think those 4 games are scheduled for after everyone else is finished. So, maybe he recovers quickly enough. I don't know. But hopefully Bogosian is in the lineup sooner than later.
Yeah, exactly. You look at Bogosian and what he brings to that Toronto team essentially is just experience. He won the Cup with Tampa last year and just kind of like knows just from last year, specifically what it takes, from a team to make that deep run. So, a little bit of a blow, but it's going to allow a guy like Rasmus Sandin to get these, top 6 minutes for the rest of the regular season and could be a good thing for the Leafs.
The GMs discussed whether the league should stick with divisional playoffs for the first 2 rounds or go back to the old conference format. I think this is for this year's playoffs. So last year, the format was mostly divisional. The top 3 teams in each division qualify, then the next 2 teams in the conference with the best records. The idea is being floated now is for divisional only playoffs. So you could either have the top 4 teams get in or could expand it to 5 and have the teams that are ranked 4 and 5 to play in a best of 3 play-in series. So I think that kind of relates to the NBA and what they're doing with the 9 and 10 seed. And, the winner playing the top seed in that division. So the division only playoffs can lead to an 84-game schedule that keeps a high number of divisional games. So there's 2. So this was tweeted out by Gord Miller, I should say. 2 versus other conference home or away, so that's 32 games. 2 versus other division home or away, which is 16 games. 5 versus own division, which is 35 games. And 1 additional game versus a team in your own division, which is your biggest rival. In exchange for an 84-game schedule, the players would get a shortened training camp, which is 2 weeks plus a max of 4-game preseason. So to that last point there, as we saw, at the beginning of this 56-game, schedule with the Leafs and Habs kicking it off, I think the players need as much training camp as possible. So I don't really like the idea of them getting a shortened training camp. I want them to get as many preseason games as possible because, the quality of hockey I want to watch is fast, hard hitting, lots of goal scoring, kind of like playoff, a bit of playoff hockey, I guess you could say. But, the start of this year's Leafs and Habs, kicking off the season was just atrocious.
Yeah, no, 100%. We look at the NFL, they expanded to 17 games and, they're shortening their preseason. We'll see how that affects them in terms of, their week 1 performance. And, I just have to agree with you here. I feel like, training camp and the preseason, we maybe might not have realized it until this season, how important it is just in terms of, getting players into shape and, even building, chemistry before the season actually starts. That Leafs Habs game was a little slow, for a, premier opening night game. I don't know. In terms of the divisional play, I feel like I like it to an extent, just it creates, every game means that much more just because, you're playing within your own division. But I like seeing every team play every other team. It's just nice to, see the Oilers, playing the Eastern Conference team and, not the same, 6 or 7 teams, the whole season.
Yeah, I'm tired of the Canadian division. I'm bored of it. Like, I just want this done. I want it done. I want the Habs to play the Kings. I want the Habs to play the Sharks. The Habs haven't beaten the Sharks in the Shark Tank since 1999 or however long it's been. I want that streak to be done. the Leafs would use Boston, for example, as a measuring stick game, right? So, and now you're using the same opponent as a measuring stick game for 6 other times. Like, that's kind of ridiculous to me. So, I think the players are tired of it. I'm tired of it. So hopefully we get to back to the Atlantic, sooner than later. Like, I want next year.
Yeah, no, and I think that's what the NHL is targeting for. It's just because of the, border crossing, rules that were in place, by the governments. It was just going to be tough to have, Canadian teams playing American teams.
And, the Canadian division was fun at first. Like, given the first month, it was awesome. I loved it. Now we're 5 months away from that. My opinion has changed. I want it done. I want, I can't wait till the third round. Like, the third round, I'm going to have my popcorn out with me. The first 2 rounds, I won't even bother making popcorn because I know how those 2 teams play. I want the third round. That's when we expand into other teams. That one has me at edge of the seat, edge of the couch. I'm on Twitter tweeting about my thoughts because that one's going to have me glued to my screen.
No, 100%. Within the first 2 rounds of these playoffs, these are going to be matchups of teams who have played each other, 8 to 10 times already this season. So I do think it's crazy, or not 8 to 10, 9 to 10. But yeah, and once we get into those later rounds, it's going to be, a little bit of a crapshoot just in terms of, comparing the teams towards each other. It's going to be a fun playoff once we get that late, though, for sure.
Because I wonder how the announcers, will organize their notes. Like, will they go back to last year's meeting? Like, maybe last year's playoff meeting? I don't know. Because, they certainly can't work off anything between the 2 teams this season because they've never played each other.
Yeah, exactly. And then if you look at a team, some of these teams haven't played each other in, over a year. So they're going to be unfamiliar with, the way that the team plays. Maybe they have a new coach, maybe they have new lines. So it's going to be interesting to see, how they prepare for, series against teams outside their division.
The Florida Panthers are looking to raise their capacity to 47%. They're at 25% right now, and they could get a full building if Florida advances far in the playoffs. So, like we mentioned with Dallas, I'm loving the NHL and seeing fans back into the arena because really, I'm hating the injected crowd noise. Like, I miss seeing the Bell Center packed. I miss seeing the ACC. I know it's the Scotiabank Arena. I don't care. All right, I'm calling it the ACC. Cancel me. I don't care. But yeah, I miss the ACC game packed. I miss the Bell MTS Place game packed. Rogers Place when McDavid scores an outrageous goal. That is packed. I miss everything about the fans here in Canada. I'm so glad the US is having success, though.
No, 100%. And with Florida, you just got to think it's super unfortunate that this had to be the year that, they broke out and, ended up being a top team in the league just because, they've had trouble within the last 10 years, 10, 15 years getting fans into the building. And, nothing's going to help that more than, a successful team out there on the ice. So, hopefully Florida can get more fans in the rink just because, when you think of Florida and their fans, there's a little bit of, you don't think they get too many people in the building. When you think of Florida and their fans, you have to go all the way back to their cup run in, 94, when they lost, but, the Rats getting thrown on the ice. That's the only, fan interaction I can think of Florida having. So, hopefully with this team, hopefully they can go on a deep run and, have fans along their side.
And, to your point there, this kind of makes me feel like the Buffalo Bills, although the Buffalo Bills sell out every game that they host. This season was incredible for them. They won the AFC East. They see, Josh Allen setting franchise records, tying basically, records that were set by, what's his name? Jim Kelly. And, being, the Buffalo fans couldn't be at the games for, the whole 16 game regular season. So that's just how I feel, how I feel about it, just to put into perspective that, this kind of makes me feel there's some relation between the Bills and the Panthers.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I feel like next season, if the NFL is targeting at having full capacity week 1, if the Bills do have a home game to start the season, it's going to be loud just because, the fans, they weren't able to be there all last season except for, the 2 playoff games against the Colts and the Ravens. But yeah, it's going to be loud. It's going to be loud. I'm not sure what to call the stadium. I want to say Ralph Wilson, just like you with the ACC there. It's just what it is to me.
Well, to me right now, I'll pay tribute to the Ralph Wilson, but now it's Bill's Stadium because right now Bill's Stadium has had the best performance in Bill's
That is
history in
true.
the last 15 years.
That's true. No, 100%.
Getting back into the NHL news there, Kirill Kaprizov set the rookie record for most power play goals in a season with 7. He also has 6 goals against the LA Kings this season, which is tied for second most goals by a rookie against LA in NHL history. So, like we've been mentioning, this guy is going to make bank. I cannot wait to see what his contract is.
Yeah, and to mention, just to go alongside the power play goal point, Minnesota struggled at the start of the year with the power play, but I feel like as they've gotten more confidence just with Kaprizov in the lineup, they've been able to, have more success, and they actually, I think, have the number 1 power play in the NHL over the last month.
And I must agree with that. There, it seemed as though they were almost getting joked, like, "Oh, let's send the Wild to the power play because it's going to kill off their momentum." Right? It's almost like a 2-minute penalty kill if you look at it in that sense.
Yeah, I feel like a power play, they design plays for specific players to be in opportunities to get that chance. And at the start of the year with Minnesota, it kind of just seemed like it was 5 guys out there on the ice, seeing if they could create anything. But, now they have specific plays drawn up, and it seems to be working for them.
Well, I mean, I can tell you this, that Minnesota is actually 10th last. That's a huge improvement. They're at 18.6, so they're 10th last in the NHL.
Making their way up. It was 40% or something, because I was watching the Wild game on Saturday night, and it said like 40% in the month of April, which is just crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And they were at 4%. Let's say like a couple months ago, they were so bad, like horrendous.
Mm-hmm. No, big season turnaround. And, they were winning games even when the power play wasn't working. And, now that the power play is working, you look at Minnesota, they just clinched playoffs the other day. Just, incredible season for them. And I don't think a lot of people were expecting it.
And, Minnesota is one of those teams where they find ways to win. They are a dangerous team. I think I'm taking Minnesota over anyone in the West Division. That's a bold take right there.
7-game series.
Yeah, it's a 7-game series. Anything can happen.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how crazy sports are. And I think the Wild, they clinched the playoffs on Saturday. And I think that, with them not having success but still winning games, they have the goaltending in Talbot and Kakinen. So if one thing goes wrong with Kakinen, you throw in Talbot and you still have the same confidence.
No, 100%. There's teams like Minnesota and Florida specifically. For me, it's just, we haven't really seen them with these sort of teams in the playoffs, and I'm excited to see them get in there.
On Saturday, Zdeno Chara reached 1,600 career games. He's the 5th defenseman in NHL history to reach that mark. That's huge for him. He's definitely going into the Hall of Fame with his, Stanley Cup. And hopefully, with him in Washington, they make a deep playoff run.
Yeah, it could be interesting, with players, with some players, Rajon Rondo this is NBA, but Rajon Rondo he won a title with the Boston Celtics early in his career, and then it took him a while, and then he won the NBA championship last year with the Lakers. Zdeno Chara could be that situation as well, won one with Boston, and, late in his career, winning one with Washington, second for Ovi, second for Chara. I think, a lot of fans could get behind Washington this season.
Sidney Crosby, recorded his 16th consecutive point per game season. He trails only Gretzky and Howe for total point per game seasons in NHL history. Wayne Gretzky had 19. So, maybe I think Crosby actually tied Howe, I should say, but maybe Crosby does pass Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah, I think Crosby, to say he plays another 4 years, I think is definitely realistic. And, he just has such an impact on the ice, and, knows where his line mates are, and then can score for himself as well. So to see him be, 19, 20 consecutive years, it's definitely not out of his reach.
We had a couple of Toronto Maple Leaf milestones on Saturday. Joe Thornton became the oldest Toronto Maple Leaf player to score a goal at 41 years old. Mitch Marner scored his 100th career goal as a Maple Leaf. He became the 59th player in Leafs franchise history to score 100 goals with that team. It's great to see Marner getting those accomplishments on his young career. Joe Thornton, he's setting the bar, with scoring at 41 years old. So, and actually, yeah, so I think he scored, I think it was actually given to Jason Spezza, but then he scored the wraparound goal there. So, great to see Joe Thornton, still be in the record books.
No, 100%. And, even though he's only going to probably have 1 year in Toronto, like you mentioned, you think he's going to retire after this year. Yeah, to get a record in the record book, just to be a part of Leafs history.
Anthony Mantha is still staying hot. He recorded his 200th career point on an assist for TJ Oshie's goal. I think Mantha is a great acquisition by Washington, again, to solidify their top six, solidify their power play 2 unit. And I can't wait to see what they do in the playoffs.
No, I agree. And people look at the trade, Detroit getting Vrana and Washington getting Mantha. I feel like Mantha, just fits into Washington's top six a lot better than Vrana did, just because Vrana kind of provides the role of, just a goal scorer kind of guy, whereas Mantha, he has that power forward role, but, he can score as well, dish it out. And yeah, it's going to be nice to see him in the playoffs for sure, just because he's been in Detroit his whole career. He might have gotten in early in his career, but on one of the last years of that 25-year streak, but he hasn't been on a team this good in his whole career. So it's going to be interesting to see what they can do.
Elias Pettersson is quite doubtful to return for the Canucks, so that's a big blow to their top six. But they've been doing this for a couple of months now. But it came out saying that he'll probably be out for the rest of the season. And if they want to sniff playoffs, they really did need Pettersson to be back.
Yeah, and it really does beg the question if Pags, has special powers and can predict the future, because you were pretty persistent on trading Elias Pettersson when he was still healthy in fantasy, and he only ended up playing 1 game, I think, after you traded him. So kudos to the move to you.
Jonathan Bernier had an insane night that resulted in a loss to Dallas. He made 55 saves, and at one point, it was, the shots were like 37-3 in favor of Dallas, or 43. I don't know, but it was something insane, something like that. And Dallas was just peppering Jonathan Bernier. I guess Detroit's lucky to, lose the game, but lose it in overtime.
I feel like Jonathan Bernier, people kind of just throw shade on him for no reason. I feel like his stats throughout his career have always been solid to an extent. I feel it's just the, occasional Jonathan Bernier, quote unquote goal, the full ice goal by Oliver Ekman-Larsson when he was in Toronto. He kind of has those, those low lights, Jonathan Bernier, but throughout his career, he's been a solid goalie, and in this game specifically, wasn't able to pick up the win. But 55 saves is just crazy.
We got breaking news. Breaking news per Eric Engels: Cole Caulfield is playing. Dominic Ducharme confirms. Cole Caulfield, Habs top prospect, drafted 15th overall in 2019. Had an amazing season at Wisconsin. Breaking news per Eric Engels: Cole Caulfield is playing.
Wow. Making his debut tonight. I think you're definitely tuning into that one, and I'll try to get some action in on that one as well.
Vegas is on a 9-game winning streak. That's a franchise record for them. So another record that they're setting. They are just an unstoppable force right now. They have everything going for them.
No, exactly. I think Vegas is just super, super well built. Great goaltending, good solid defensemen, and their offense now. With a guy like Stone and Pacioretty, they're able to, carry and then have the depth, chip in here and, every once in a while.
So, the Senators ran into an interesting problem on Saturday. There's no e-bug goalies this season because of the taxi squad. So you have to carry one goalie at all times. So the Senators goalie carousel continued as Forsberg was supposed to start last night, but then he got injured in warmups. Murray got hurt during the game. Marcus Hogberg stepped in and won, or didn't win, but he played the game. And had Hogberg got hurt, Artem Anisimov, the forward, had the goalie gear on. And if you guys go to his Instagram, he posted photos of him in the goalie gear. It was really funny, actually.
Yeah, and obviously, you never wish injury upon anyone, but, maybe we could have hoped that Hogberg had to tweak something and we actually would have seen Anisimov in, game action. You don't see it very often, but it does happen. But, it's a MLB players, if the bullpen gets a little shallow, they'll have a player, an outfielder, maybe an infielder go out and throw a couple pitches, but would have been fun to see, Anisimov get in the net.
Moving on to Sunday notes, not many notes to share here, but Claude Giroux scored 2 goals and is actually now 3rd all-time in Flyers franchise history for points. He has 850, and Bill Barber is second with 883. So, that's certainly a record that Claude Giroux could potentially catch.
No, 100%. I feel like Claude Giroux, throughout our lifetimes, at least you and I, he's just been, the face of that Flyers franchise. And, in the coming years, he's been there so long. I feel like he's just going to, continue to rack up the records for, Philadelphia.
Mika Zibanejad recorded his third career hat trick. That's the first Ranger player to have 3 hat tricks in one season since Marian Gaborik in 2010 and 2011. So, Mika Zibanejad, a complete steal for when the Rangers traded for him from Ottawa. But yeah, so great to see that he's having success.
Yeah, no, 100%. Mika Zibanejad, just such a great player. And, he's really, he was underrated for the longest time, and now I feel like he's finally getting the respect he deserves as one of the top players in the league.
And moving on to actually Zach Hogan's North Division power rankings for the week. Zach Hogan has, hold on, I'm just pulling it up here. Very unprofessional of me as I do it while we are recording. I should have had it already pulled up. Hold on here. This is very unprofessional. So first, he has the Maple Leafs. Second, he has the Oilers. Third, he has the Jets. Fourth, he has the Flames. Fifth, he has the Senators. Sixth, he has the Canucks. And seven, he has the Montreal Canadiens. That's very, actually, who am I to say? The Habs suck recently. So they deserve that 7th spot. The Canucks come out of the gate flying, like you mentioned. Senators, they're playing like one of the best North Division teams right now. They have a lot of confidence going for them. Yep. The Flames have beaten the Habs, I think, like 4 of the 5 past meetings. So that makes sense. Jets, Edmonton, and Toronto all make sense there. Number 1. I think, we'll see the Jets kind of fall off. I think, Zach Hogan has them right in the number 3 spot because of the injury to Nick Ehlers that was announced today.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that injury does impact their top 6. But, they've lost, Scheifele for stretch. Maybe Scheifele hasn't been hurt, but I know they've lost Wheeler and Dubois for stretches. So, they've been able to adjust all year, and, they're going to have to once again.
Yeah, for sure. And, moving on to Pegs' predictions here. So these are for Tuesday's games. I have the Capitals over the Islanders, Flyers over the Devils, Rangers over the Sabres, Penguins over the Bruins, the Blue Jackets over the Red Wings, Lightning over Blackhawks, Panthers over Predators, and Hurricanes over the Stars.
I'll go with the I don't know if Ovi's playing or not. Ovi also missed a game. I feel like, that's pretty interesting. He's typically not a guy who's going to miss a game for injury. He was held out of Saturday's action. But I'll go with the Islanders over the Capitals. I'll go with the Devils over the Flyers. Flyers have been a little, disappointing in the second half of the season. The whole season, actually, they've been pretty disappointing. I'll go with the Rangers over the Sabres. Pains me. I like picking the Sabres, but I got both Rangers goalies right now in fantasy, so I'm pulling for them in that game for sure. I'll go with the Red Wings over the Blue Jackets. I'll go with the Penguins over the Bruins. I'll go with the Lightning over the Blackhawks. Stars over Hurricanes. I'll go with a little bit of an upset, but that could be Tyler Seguin's return. So, I'm hoping for that. And I'll go with the Panthers over the Predators as well.
Well, I'd like to thank again Nolan Thode for joining me on another edition of Down to the Wire.
It's always a pleasure, Pags.